Welcome back. President Cyril Ramaphosa says a national water crisis committee, which he will chair to address the country's worsening water woes. Ramaphosa's announcement does come as parts of Gauteng is battling widespread water outages there. As a result, the Water and Sanitation, as well as Cogta ministers Pemmy, Majodina and Velenkosini Hlabisa, have been recalled from SONA to attend to the Gauteng water crisis. For more reaction on the President's interventions to the water crisis, I'm joined by Dr. Ferrial from WaterCan. Dr. Adam, good to have you on the program this evening. So, WaterCan has called on President Ramaphosa to declare the ongoing water crisis a national disaster. And many of Johannesburg residents are now saying they are living day zero every day with taps running dry for weeks now. With SONA 2026 happening against this backdrop of protests about the water crisis, do you think the State of the Nation address adequately acknowledges this crisis? And if not, what was missing from the President's speech?
So thank you, and good evening to your viewers. I think it was a part recognition of the challenges that we have. So the fact that for the first time, SONA had a really big focus on water means it has been placed on the national agenda. But I do think that some of these promises were made, and I also think some of them are not going to be quick fixes. I did find it quite, I want to say amusing, but not quite, when he said he sent the minister and the two ministers to Johannesburg, and he's been told that pipes are fixed and the reservoirs are filling, which is actually not the case. I think that simplified the issue, and it was a bit of a concern. Yeah, so I do think that while there's some things that we feel we've made quite strides, and we must be honest about that, as civil society, it's gotten to the agenda, the national agenda, because we've pushed for it. It's not everything we wanted, but it's a step forward.
It's a step forward from what you say. But from WaterCan's perspective, where's the most serious breakdown in the water delivery system? Is it at municipal service delivery level, a bulk supply from Rand Water, for instance, or infrastructure maintenance? And how should the government then prioritize its action in response?
So I think it's definitely your local government at your municipal level, and the infrastructure, lack of maintenance and focus on infrastructure at a local government level. So I think that when, the president said last year in SONA that he's going to ring fence money for water and sanitation, he repeated it this time. He just didn't say the word ring fencing. But he did say that the revenue from water and sanitation must be used for water and sanitation. For us, we cannot have the next SONA where we're saying the same thing. There has to be action. And that is what we have to push for right now, because without action, it's going to be the same situation. I do like that he's recognizing that local government is failing and that national government needs to step in. Because if you look at what the minister said earlier this week, she said national government cannot step in its local government issue. So I like that that has changed, because that's what we've been calling for as well, that you cannot leave something as important as water and sanitation in the hands of a failing local government across the country.
Yeah, but are these interventions too late, some may argue this evening?
So I think they will be too late if we're talking about it next year again. I think that placing water on the national agenda does give it a little bit more of an emphasis, and also that we can now write to the president and say not much is being done. So what needs to happen now, and what we didn't see last year, is we need to see action. We need to see actual kind of timelines, and this is what's going to happen at local government and how people will be able to deal with it. So I don't think it's too little too late. I think we still can salvage a lot and put effort into our water and our water and sanitation infrastructure from now. We could save a lot. But if we leave it for more years, and if we leave it for another SONA, then yes, it's just going to be empty words, like empty taps.
it's just going to be empty words, just like empty taps. But the crisis has seen residents queuing for water tankers or water at tankers, Dr. Adams, sometimes for hours before supplies run out. How effective are these interim solutions? And do they even uphold basic human rights to water and sanitation?
So we've been arguing that water tankers must not become the norm. They must not be something that is expected on how we get our water. We need to ensure that the money, the new budget that government is putting in place, is not just for water tankers, but for actual infrastructure on the ground. The other good thing, by the way, that the president mentioned was the focus on organized crime. So he did organized crime and water were the two key headline discussions. And I think those are very linked when we look at the fact that with the water tanker, you've got the water tanker mafia. And I think if he really means what he says about dealing with organized crime, here is, as government would say, a low-hanging fruit to kind of nip this in the bud before it gets even worse than it is. So find out, there are government officials and probably politicians that have shares in water tanker companies. They can find out very easily if they're serious about tackling organized crime.
Yeah. Dr. Adam, beyond outages, WaterCan's own citizen science testing has shown unsafe drinking water in multiple areas. Let's speak about this. How does the crisis then extend beyond a supply quantity into quality issues as well?
So for us, when we test, we have a methodology. When you test, we can't say that test is the one that we kind of retest. We inform councillors, we inform municipalities. So there's a process that we follow. But when we get to the municipal level, they tend to ignore us. They tend to not engage. They tend to just, we don't care about it. There's nothing we can do. With this particular SONA, we can now go right to the president and saying, this municipality, we know the water is polluted and the municipality is not listening. So it forces engagement with people on the ground. And that is something that I think we can still do. The other thing I must say, a lot of the work of civil society across the country who have raised the issue of water, who've protested around water, is the reason why this SONA focused so much on water. And I think we need to continue doing that. So we need to take the speech and we need to hold national government and all local governments accountable because of this speech.
Yeah. Going back to an issue you touched on a short while ago, critics are also pointing to corruption, mismanagement, and aging infrastructure as root causes as well of this problem. What accountability measures, in your view, should be put in place to ensure that officials and contractors are responsible for systematic failures?
So I think the one thing we need to do, and this sounds like a big picture issue, but I think we need to improve communication, and there needs to be transparency on all tenders and all procurement processes. So we know and understand who are getting these tenders, right? So we need to have openness and transparency around that. The second issue is that I think, and it's why it's linked to the issue of organized crime and crime in general, is that we want to see that if people are not doing their job, they must be fired. And there needs to be that kind of accountability that we go to. The fact that the president has now said we can even lay criminal charges against municipal managers. We've been arguing for that, and the 56 criminal charges, by the way, that the president spoke about are on pollution. It's not on service delivery. And we're hoping that what the president is talking about will then be able to hold those officials accountable for delivery or lack of service delivery. They need to know that they will pay a price for not doing the job that they need to do.
Dr. Adam, there's been debate on whether protests like No Water, No Vote should influence political accountability. From an advocacy standpoint, what role should civil society and citizens then play in shaping sustainable water policy in this country?
I think we're doing it. I think that when you are demanding accountability and you are pushing for answers and understanding the networks and democratizing in terms of the knowledge of water. I think that is doing a lot in terms of advocacy and policy. We also have, you can comment on when they have new legislation. We put into place and comment as civil society. So I think when you talk about no water, no vote, I mean, that particular phrase was being said at a time when people were particularly angry. They did not have water. And so these are the kinds of things where government also needs to realize that you can't rely on just expecting people to vote all the time if you are not doing your job. And democracy is more than just voting. So government needs to also understand it's fine to let people vote, but you need to listen all the time. You need to make sure that people are heard all the time. That builds accountability. That builds a policy space that is actually engaging and delivers growth rather than leaving people angry and hopeless because they feel that they're not being heard.
Yeah. Dr. Adam, climate variability and drought are often cited, but WaterCan says these aren't core issues in places like Johannesburg, for instance.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you on that question. Could you please repeat it? It's a bit soft.
I'm saying around issues on climate variability, and drought as well. These are often cited as challenges, but WaterCan says these aren't core issues in places like Johannesburg. Can you explain what the real drivers of the crisis are and why this distinction matters most?
So WaterCan has never said it's not a core issue, just by the way, as a correction. What we did say is that government has declared a national disaster in the Western Cape because people are nearing a day zero. We are saying that in Johannesburg, people are living a day zero, and it is because of infrastructural collapse. It does not mean that we are not affected by climate change. We are indeed affected by climate change because we are a water scarce country. Johannesburg is dependent on the integrated Vaal River system, which can be affected by climate, right? So, and then what we've seen as well in terms of modeling is the warmer it gets in Johannesburg, which is what the models say we will get wetter and hotter. People will use more water, so your systems cannot cope. So it's not that we're not affected by climate change. All we were saying in terms of the national disaster nearing day zero is that we are living a day zero. And on top of that is climate change. So we have an infrastructural collapse, aging infrastructure, we have reservoirs that are leaking, pipes that need replacing that have not happened, maintenance that has been neglected for about a decade. All of that compounded by the impacts of climate change.
Dr. Ferrial, Adam, thank you so much for your insights tonight. Of course, as we've heard, how the water outages affecting Johannesburg and other parts of South Africa are not just service interruptions, but a deeper crisis of infrastructure, governance and human rights, and one that WaterCan says requires urgent national level action, transparency, and also, like you've heard, accountability as well from government to ensure that water once again becomes a reliable reality for all citizens. We will continue to follow this story as it unfolds. Of course, the President heading up efforts to find solutions in that regard.